Hey, good day, Rising Generation. Before we go into our podcast today, just a brief announcement for you. Coming up on the 3rd of October 2016, we're going to be launching a campaign for the Rising Generation Leadership Series. 5 books that I've written based on the interviews we've done with the guests on the podcast over the last 12 months or so. So from all of our interviews, we've found that there are 5 big challenges that leaders have said they've faced on their way to significance. And around those 5 challenges, I've written like 5 books which give you the challenges and the solutions, an amazing tool for any leader out there. And so we're trying to get as many of these books sold as we can through our campaign. And for every copy of this series that we sell, we're going to give £4 away to our charitable work in Ghana, which will allow us to reach young people in the rural areas of Ghana, giving them leadership training, soft skills training, and much more. All right. So really, really would love your support on that. Please check out the link in the podcast show notes here. And also go to the website, which is www.publishizer.com/The Rising Generation. So guys, we love your support on that. Please share this with your friends and loved ones. And let's take it all the way. Thank you for your support. God bless you. Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. If this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you. It's great to have you with us today. The Rising Generation exists to inspire and equip Christian leaders from all walks of life, from all around the world, to fulfill their God-given potential. By hearing these interviews with established, internationally recognized leaders, we hope you'll be inspired to connect the dots between where you are now and where it is God has called you to be. Now, to receive notifications about future episodes, simply subscribe to our podcast show by either on iTunes if you're on Apple, or on Stitcher, the Stitcher app if you're on Android. You can find out how to do that just by going to our webpage at www.errollawson.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends, share it with your loved ones. Hopefully they will also benefit from the content. Guys, thanks for listening. Before we go into today's show, here's some news for you.
At some point in their lives, every great leader runs up against one problem that is simply impossible to ignore. How are they going to fund their vision? Today, Errol is offering you a free copy of his first book in the Rising Generation Leadership Series entitled Big Vision, No Money, 5 Keys to Funding Your Vision. In the book, you'll find guidance from some of the great leaders featured on this podcast about the way Christian leaders should think about money and approach their finances. Simply go to www.errollawson.com to download your copy today. Christian coaching is where more and more leaders turn to increase leadership effectiveness and move forward toward their destiny. If you're looking for a great coach who understands ministry leadership and business principles, connect with Errol Lawson. Errol is a member of the John Maxwell Coaching, Speaking, and Training team and has extensive experience in ministry and Christian leadership training. What do you need to take your ministry, business, or personal life to the next level? Errol can help you refocus, meet a challenging goal, reconnect with your passion for ministry, navigate a transition, or bring balance to your life.
Hello and welcome once more to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson, and our very special guest today is Nicole Unice. Nicole is a fresh voice for the next generation. Part Bible teacher, part community organizer, part busy mom, Nicole has the uncanny ability to relate to people in all ages and stages of life with a keeping it real approach to ordering life around God's Word. Her first book was called She's Got Issues, released in May 2012, and speaks to a fundamental question of faith. Is being a Christian supposed to change me? And the book is followed by a DVD and group experience and a 6-week journey of interviews. I really recommend you go and check out Nicole's book. Check out her website, NicoleUnice.com. But without further ado, Nicole, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be with you, Errol.
Great to have you with us today, man. Nicole, fill in any gaps, first of all, in your bio there, if you will, please. And then give us a glimpse into what you're up to in the world.
Sure, yeah. So I spend the most of my time at Hope Church in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm on the staff there. And I'm part of the leadership team. So that ends up being a lot of what my days are filled with, just ministry life, all the things that come with the local church. And I'm so grateful that I get to serve here and grateful for what God's doing here. And what that means is I spend a lot of time leading staff and volunteers, particularly those who are new going into ministry. So we have a residential program here for new ministry leaders, and they come and spend 10 months with us here full time, and I get to direct that program.
Awesome. Now, I know you've been in ministry for a long time, and people who are listening today, there are going to be people who are passionate about leadership. Many of them are thinking, wow, another awesome woman in leadership, and they're going to be inspired by that as well. But just tell us, where did it start for you? How did you get into ministry? What was your journey?
Absolutely. Well, that would take a lot longer than one podcast, but and that's important, I think, especially if you're a young person. I think you can get to hear and listen to podcasts with people who've been doing it for a long time, and we don't have 15 years to talk about the 15 years that it took to get to where I feel like God's really called me. But that's really a journey that I've been on. I feel like ministry, at least we know that God is intentional with His plans, but from my perspective, it felt accidental. It was never my plan. It's just what God really did in my life. But I've always loved leaders. Even as a young girl, I was so interested and intrigued by leaders of all kinds and women leaders, and often found myself in leadership roles, but didn't know that God would have a place for me in the church, nor did I really have the desire for that. That's what God did, just in the way that He healed me and grew me in my own faith through college, and then just really lit a fire in my heart for people when I started doing student ministry in my early 20s. I knew nothing. I was so unaware of so much of the world and life and God, but my church gave me the opportunity to lead this small group of girls, and then eventually the student ministry at our church. And through that, and through the mentorship of people who really invested in me, God really began to put a path in front of me that has led me to this point where I now preach and lead and write and teach and get to, mentor a lot of young people as well. But that's been a long, hard journey to get there.
And what's been your biggest challenge along the way in just moving towards where you are now? What's the biggest challenge you faced?
Yeah, I think, Errol, this may sound a little churchy, but I think faith has been my biggest challenge. And what I mean by that is the faith to believe that God is faithful and He will see through to completion what He's put in your heart. I think that I had a lot of dreams in my heart that I didn't know how they would be realized or what they would really mean for many years, probably more than a decade, where I felt like just because God's made me love His word and love to teach, there's not going to be a place for that. So it was a faith deepening experience to not run ahead of God, to not give up on a plan, to not believe that there wasn't a way forward just because I couldn't see the way forward. I think sometimes we really make God small because we think He can only work in the channels that we could imagine. And Ephesians 3 says He's a God who gives more than we could ask for or even imagine. So faith has been the greatest challenge for me, to learn to trust God.
And, on the journey, tell us about one of your turning points. Was there a point where you were heading in one direction and something happened, and maybe a revelation came and you were forced maybe to even take a different direction completely?
Yeah, I have had an opportunity or a time like that. I'm almost 40. I'm in my late 30s, and that's only happened to me one time, really distinctly, that I can think of. There's been plenty of times where doors have shut and, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep being faithful to this one thing. But there was one time in my early 20s where I was planning to go to graduate school. I had already been accepted to a school. I already had a planned master's program. I already had even a scholarship. So it was a full ride to a master's program. And I really felt like the Lord impressed upon my heart. That's the best way I can say it. It wasn't an audible voice. It was just a strong impression in my heart that I should go to seminary. Okay. I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that sounded ridiculous. And I remember thinking in that exact moment, God, is that you? Are you serious? And I had a very distinct impression of a voice and a tone that was loving and kind. If I would have told you earlier, you would not have believed me. Wow. That was a very strong statement that I felt was impressed upon my heart. And the funny thing about that statement is it almost made me laugh because it was so full of love. The tone was so full of love. And it was so true. Like, I was like, that is so true. Like, God could not have called me to something like that before that moment, because it's true that I would not have believed him. So my husband was in support, and we chucked those plans to get that master's degree, and I applied to seminary that week, and I was in a seminary class like 6 weeks later. So I ended up, that was a big diversion that I was not expecting.
And, how did that change your definition of success, or what is your definition of success now the same? I think that my definition of success used to be whatever the next thing is that seems more important than the thing I'm doing, which is quite a reactive way to live and is quite subjective and fully based in just ambition. And that's been a struggle for me, especially in my earlier adult life. But I think now a definition of success to me is being faithful in the long run. Success is about the character that you have, that God has grown in you when no one's looking. And success to me is mostly now about a true desire to see others grow, heal, or succeed, much less about what does it look like for me to succeed or for me to be more important, much more about what does it look like for the people that God has entrusted me to succeed, to heal, to grow, to be valued. And that's a real shift. I wish I could say that was natural, but it was not natural. It took a long time of leadership and ministry to really have, I think, God grow me, refine me into that direction. And to be looking in that direction. And I think for most of us, I'll say, especially if you're a younger leader, most of us keep thinking that we're too young to be like that. We're still trying to, quote unquote, make it ourselves. But you're never too young to be looking behind you. You're never too young to be thinking, how am I making the person that God's entrusted to me, or the people, or the small group, or the church, how do I make them heal? How do I lead them to Christ? Not how do I get my act together or grow in my whatevers. So that's what I've learned about success, I'd say, over the last few years.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation, introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
How did you overcome that faith challenge, or how do you, when you face that crisis of faith at times, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have a crisis of faith like 3 times a month, just in case anyone's thinking that's like a rare occasion. And what I mean by crisis of faith is not I'm losing my faith. It's not that I don't believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world and that He's in me and that I have a relationship with the Father. It's the crisis of faith that comes when I'm not actually living like that's true. And that can be in small ways, like when I feel really insecure about a project or a situation going on or a relationship, and that insecurity is showing me that I'm not trusting my Father with this thing. I'm not believing that He's real in this matter. Or it could be a much bigger thing. But for me, faith is like it's like a journey that you're on all the time that always requires a next step. And what I mean by that is it might be that your next thing is you wake up and you're in a bad mood or discouraged. And instead of wallowing in your discouragement, you turn to a psalm and you read it. And even if you don't feel different in that moment, you're having the faith to believe that filling yourself with God's goodness will eventually bring goodness. It's the small little steps of, you know what, I feel like I'm just hitting my head against a wall in every leadership avenue I have, but I'm still going to show up with positivity today, and I'm going to call it a good day because I showed up. And I showed up with my whole heart. That's it. That's all I can do today. I can't make these doors open, but I can keep being faithful to show up. And that's what, and then asking God, what are you growing in me? You know, and really believing that when you seek him, you will find him if you seek him with your whole heart. You know, that's a promise of Scripture. If you seek me, you will find me if you seek me with your whole heart. And I think all of us have to acknowledge it may take us a while to get our whole heart devoted to seeking God. So don't be surprised when you don't find him right away. Like, if you're not in a place where you're so desperate for his word and his presence and nothing else matters, you're not asking him for an answer. You're not asking him for a material blessing. You're not asking him to work this thing out. You're just asking him for him, just for him. That's when our whole hearts are seeking him. And I do believe he's very faithful to respond to us. But we got to be honest with ourselves that a lot of times we're not seeking God with our whole heart. So it's not that he's not showing up. It's a lot of times that we're not showing up with our whole hearts. And it may take you a day or a week or a month to get to that point where that you know honestly that all you want is him. You don't want him to answer something or give you something or make something happen. You just want him.
You know, I love this. Nicole, tell us, what's your vision?
I don't know. You know, I have often been vision insecure. Like, you know, I need to have this vision for what my next 20 years looks like. And I don't think that's, at least for me, is not realistic when Jesus said, you know, unless you enter the kingdom of God like a child. And children don't have that kind of vision for their lives. They have a vision for the next day. But if I had to say, I know that's a little bit not telling you the answer, but if I had to say, I would say my big vision is to lead people to a loving God. And whatever avenue God opens for me to be doing that. And every one of those words is important to me. I know I'm a leader. I know God's wired me for people. I know He's instilled in me a desire for people to know that He's a loving God. And I think ultimately there's nothing I can do for someone other than lead them toward God. I can't fix their problems. I can't make them experience God.
When you call a lot of leaders, emerging leaders today, they'll say, one of their biggest challenges is creating that vision or getting that vision and then communicating it in a compelling way that gets others engaged. You've had to do that over the years because you're leading people, you're leading teams, departments. How do you do that?
That's a great question. Yeah, no, I mean, and a lot of times I am moving people toward a vision that's not like a personal vision. It's not a personal follow me. It's for an organization. It's for the church. Sure. It's for, an event. And so and a really important part for me is for me to fully believe in what the vision is. And as long as it takes me to get there, all the questions I need to ask, all the things I need to think about, and it takes me sometimes a while, but once I'm there, Rick Warren, who's a pastor in America, tweeted this thing a long time ago, but it stuck with me, and it was, you naturally evangelize anything you love. And I think that's really true. Take anything. If you love your iPhone, if you love an app on your phone, if you love a band, if you love a restaurant, you don't need someone to tell people about it. You just tell them about it. You just love it. You want people to know. And I think when we have a vision that we're bringing forward, we have to believe in the vision. We had a huge vision campaign here at Hope that I led, and it was asking people for a lot of money, and it was asking for a lot of sacrifice. I believe totally in it.
That's good.
So when I'm talking with others about it, I'm helping them to also believe in it, and then all the rest of it falls in line.
Brilliant. Wow, you rock, Nicole Unice.
Thanks,
So,
Errol.
like John Maxwell said that the secrets of your success can be found in your daily routine. What do the first 90 minutes of your day look like typically?
Oh, this is great. I was actually thinking about this morning. I'm so glad you said this because it's so easy to fall off of these things and to let the urgent of the day be where you start to roll over and check your email before you're even out of the bed, as if you just want to invite all those people to be jumping on your bed before you're even awake. So for me, I'm constantly trying to keep this at the front, but there's kind of three things that can be the first part of my day. Praying before I even get out of bed and worshiping God just with a few words or phrases to remind myself that he's God and I'm not, and he's worthy of worship every day. I try to exercise in the morning because that just is a way that settles me and helps me feel like I'm getting started on the right foot. And it's the most creative time of my day is early morning, so it's where I would do writing. If I'm preparing a message, if I am writing a book chapter, I do that early in the morning. Now, of course, I can't do all those things. I do always pray, but I can't do all those things. So there's always a compromise depending on the season that I'm in on how I spend that time, if it's going to be my creative space or it's going to be my exercise space, but really trying hard to not let it become the space that I enter that I, answer the 10 emails that I didn't get to yesterday, because to me, that's actually a waste of that time. It's the best 90 minutes of the day. So use it for the most important things that sustain you for the long term. And answering other emails is not sustaining me for the long term. That can be done at another time of the day.
It's good. It's good, man. And are there any other key habits that contribute to your success as a leader?
I think like I said, I think I'm still working those out, just like everyone is.
Sure.
But if I had to think back to my 20s and 30s, I think some key habits are to have some real friends, which sounds funny, but actually leadership is very tempting to become a very isolated person where you feel like many, many people know you. Or think they know you, but you don't feel known, and that is actually like a pretty dangerous place to be, because that means when you're starting to really struggle, you're still putting forward a face that doesn't show that struggle, and you have no one in that gap of what's really going on, and so I try to really prioritize. I have 3 good friends in this town who I can talk to about anything, who are safe, who are in my community, but are able to have the confidentiality to allow me to speak freely and honestly about what's really going on. And I need that. I need accountability. I need them to call me out if they think I'm headed in the wrong direction.
So, Nicole,
and it's hard to do that.
Nicole, what do you do, right, when there's one part of your life that's out of whack? So you're leading and you're influencing and people are looking to you for direction, but your finances are a mess, or stuff at home's a mess. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you bring stuff together?
Oh, it's so hard, right? Because we want to lead. We want to lead out of overflow. We don't want to lead out of a deficit. And, I think what comes to mind when you ask me that, Errol, is how much the enemy wants us to feel disqualified from our work.
Wow.
And we'll use those places and will bring a lot of shame and try to shame us into believing that it's not that we're struggling in this area. It's that we're actually a failure.
Right.
So what is a challenging circumstance becomes a piece of our identity.
Right.
And that's not of the Lord. It's not the voice. It's not the way that he grows us. He grows us in love. So that's not very practical. That's just
that's real, man.
A sense of what I wanted to say for those who might feel that way.
It's great. It's great.
And don't let it stay hidden, I think, is what I would say to someone who's maybe even feeling exposed while they're listening to this, because they know there's something in their life that is so out of accord with who they want to be, is don't let it stay in the dark, because that's where it grows and becomes out of whack even more. So find someone that you can tell honestly how you're doing, and that's going to be the first step to getting help and health in that place.
It's great. It's great. It's great wisdom. Thank you. And what's your biggest weakness as a leader?
Say that again?
What's your biggest weakness as a leader?
Oh, biggest weakness. My biggest weakness is waiting on the Lord. Waiting on when I feel like point A to point B is attainable and it should happen right now, I have a very hard time not just pushing forward, and pushing beyond, really picking fruit before it's ripe is the best analogy I have for that. So that's a constant struggle for me, is to maintain faith and positivity and perseverance, even when I think something should already be moving forward. And that's a huge weakness, because that can create, it's a snowball effect where I can start to dominate other people and actually get them out of accord with God's will as well, in my desire to move something forward. So I try to be really careful about that and really pay attention to that.
That's great. I love that. Picking fruit before it's ripe. So we can all relate to that, What's your biggest strength?
I think most of us are probably, if you've been around for a little while, already know this to be true. But just in case you don't, usually, your strength and your weakness are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So that coin is this gem that God has given you, this gift that God has given you, and it's sort of like the power that can be used for evil or for good, in all of us. And so my same energy that can distract or truncate God's plan or his timeline is the same energy that is my greatest strength, which is the ability to activate people, to move them forward, to mobilize, to help them connect the dots and make a next step. And I'm grateful for that, but I know it comes with that weakness side. And I think all of us who are leaders, if you've been around for even a year of leadership, you should start to know, what is your coin? What is the gem that God has given you that can be used for evil or for good? Because every single person has one.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole. Listen, we're almost done now. Just tell us, who are your top 3 most significant mentors?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 2 and then 1 group of people. So the top 2, my 2 significant mentors are the 2 guys who founded this church 18 years ago, and their names are David and Pete, and they're co-founding pastors. I've been part of this church from when it was a church plant with 70 people in a school till now, which is 2 campuses and, about 2,500 people on a weekend. And to be a part of watching the journey of 2 leaders who had a vision and a dream, and then watching and seeing and being part of the perseverance, the character shaping, the diligence, I have been shaped for my entire life by being mentored by these 2 men. And I'm so pleased that I still get to work with them and support the mission here. And then the other group is a group that I prayed that God would bring into my life in a time where I was growing in my own leadership, and feeling pretty isolated as a woman in leadership. And I pray that God, I just was like, Lord, I need to be able to look to someone. And in the last couple years, he's brought some amazing women leaders in my life that I feel like he really miraculously put in my life, which is so cool that God does that. So I've got a whole group of women now who've been leading faithfully, who are older than me, who've been doing it longer, that I can call, that have counseled me, encouraged me. And I wanted that. I really wanted that in my life for probably 15 years, but in the right timing, God provided it, and it's been crucial for me. So really grateful for those women as well.
Awesome. And what's the best piece of advice you've got from those 3, if those 3 groups or individuals?
Okay, so David is our senior pastor, and he's taught me what it means to pursue a vision and to not lose people along the way, like the tension between moving people forward but not rolling over them. Right. Pete Pete, I would say, has taught me what it means to go after the heart, to go after the heart of God, to allow God to win your heart, and to always care most about a person's heart more than anything else. And then Nancy and Elisa and Joe and these other women have really taught me what it looks like to be a faithful leader as a female, and to be confident in that, and to develop a voice that should be and can be at any table that it's invited to. So
Amen.
That's what I've learned.
Amen. Wow. And what's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
I get pretty fired up about this program that we have here called Praxis, which is what I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. It's a 10-month program for young leaders coming into ministry. And so those leaders, our next class will arrive here in the next 3 weeks. And I get so excited because to get to see someone's life be shaped, to be a part of shaping a life for a year, to see what God does from day one until the completion of their time here is incredible, and I love it. So I'm so excited for them to arrive.
And is there a book or a resource you'd recommend for a leader that's listening right now?
Yeah, I think if you haven't read Boundaries for Leaders.
Who's that by?
I recommend Boundaries as a book all the time, and I think Boundaries for Leaders. It's by Cloud and Townsend.
Okay, yeah.
Henry Cloud and John Townsend. Great book about how your leadership is shaped by the way that you lead. Like, your results are your own responsibility, basically, and you're creating the environment, whether you know it or not. You're creating the environment that you're getting. So it's a great book. I'm reading also a book called Multipliers by Liz Wiseman right now. Also, if you're a little more senior in leadership, a great book about how you make everyone around you smarter by the way that you lead them.
Awesome. Brilliant. Go check out those books, guys. Nicole,
absolutely.
It's always amazing speaking to you, Nicole. Like, so loaded. You're loaded, man. If you know it,
thank you, Errol.
where do we go to find out more about you? I know the website is NicoleUnice.com. But tell us more, how do we get in touch?
Sure. Yeah, my last name is kind of funny. It's just UNICE. So you can find me there or on social media. I'd love to connect with you. My books are on the website. Lots of different, we have a podcast every week. You can connect. I'd love to be in touch with whoever wants to be in touch. And I really, really appreciate you letting me come and share with you guys today.
Nicole, thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate you, your time, what you're doing in the world, your example, your wisdom. I always leave inspired after having spoken to you. You're a blessing to the body of Christ.
Thank you.
And to the world, man. We thank God for your life, man. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol@errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around a leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away or get you booked in. It's Errol@errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes. Give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.